The Sock Jig Sneaker Podcast. Can't pronounce Warren Lotas. Lotas? Lo? What? Welcome to episode 5 of the Sock Jig Sneaker Podcast. I'm your host, Sock Jig. You could follow me on Twitter at SockJig and on Instagram as well at SockJig. We got a jam-packed show today. I got my first ever guest. I got my buddy It's the Mob from Twitter, who primarily sells through GOAT storage. So I wanted to talk to him about how sales have slowed down on GOAT ever since they implemented the 6.5% fee on all instant ship orders. I also have a new segment coming up called The Forecast, where I talk about a couple shoes and that are coming up, and I go through my thought process and where I think the price will eventually settle at, the resale price that is. I got a couple of other short topics I want to get through. I want to talk about the Warren Lotas Nike thing for just a bit as well too, just to kind of wrap that up. And but first, let's do some on feet and pickup segment. On feet, most of this week I've had on the Nike Air Max 1 Atmos Animal Pack 2.0, the black one that came out in 2018. This has been one of my favorite releases of the past few years. I think probably most worn too. It's pretty loud, but I think it really kind of can go with anything, especially black pants. And it's also one of the few times where I've actually swapped the laces. I swapped in the green laces because it really pops with the green laces and also matches the Nike Air on the back that's also in green. Like I mentioned last time, I missed a lot of the Air Max 1 drops from like 2005 to 2009 or so. And the 2007 version of this pair is probably, going for a few $1,000 now, but most of those pairs are probably pretty unwearable. You probably need a sole swap anyway, so there's much more value in this one. Prices right now on StockX are around $400, $450 USD in sizes 10 and under, and it's usually higher in size 12. But I could totally see this shoe being $700-800 plus in a year or two. It's already jumped up a lot in the last year, so if you've had your eye on this one, I suggest you don't sleep on it, and especially if you're size 10 and under, you can pick it up for pretty good value. Also, I should probably start using my Instagram more, and I'll start posting some of the stuff that I've been wearing if I haven't already on my Instagram. Sometimes I post it on stories more often than I do in actual posts. For pickups this week, I picked up only two. The first one was the Reebok Pyer Blue Trail Fury, and that is how you pronounce it. It is Pyer, not Pyer. This is the one that looks like like the Road Warrior the movie or the wrestling team. It's kind of out there. It's really, really kind of an influencer / trendsetter, if you know type shoe. And, I consider myself a trendsetter in my work from home sweats all day and, not leaving the house. But anyways, size 12 seems like it's like non-existent for this shoe. I only saw 11.5s and 12.5s. So I went with 11.5 and hoping it fits. Hasn't arrived yet. But it's a dope shoe. There was an Innocence Project version that came out earlier in the year, like quarantine time, and that one is super fire. That one was like black, white, with hints of pink. And even that time, I missed on my size. I got a different size, and I ended up just flipping it because it wasn't my size. But it was really nice in hand, so I was like waiting for another release so I can pick it up again. But it's a dope shoe. Check it out if you haven't seen it. It is expensive. It was like $250 US, so I know that probably rules out a lot of this kind of stuff. But I thought it was dope, and I wanted to see it. The other pickup I had was the ALD X New Balance 550 red version. I talked about this shoe last week. I finally tried these on. Kind of narrow for me. Probably because it's an all leather shoe, but I'm sure with a little bit of wear, it loosens up a bit. Usually New Balance are, mesh toe box with a suede toe cap, and usually you can go like half size down. I don't suggest going half size down on these just because it is this, archive type shoe. It's also been on Instagram all week, especially if you follow a lot of those, meme vintage accounts like Hidden New York and Old Man Allen. What are you wearing type places. Those aggregators of Persian rugs and tote bags and stuff like that. So if that's what you want to do is get your tote bag and get your Persian rug and your plants, this is a shoe for you. Personally, I'll probably just keep the green one and leave it on the stack. The sneaker guy of the week is someone explained the hype to me guy. Usually there's a collab shoe that releases and they don't understand the hype behind it and they explicitly want it explained to them why this is hype. Some of the alternates that you might see are like people only because it's limited. If it didn't say Off-White, they'd be at the outlets. Speaking of which, I did see some Off-White track shoes showing up at outlets, but that's a separate point. Most of the time, the person saying this is a sneaker boomer, someone who's doesn't understand why Off-White is hype and things like that. Younger people, they don't care as long as it flips. That's all who cares, right? Your cook group said to buy it, so let's buy it. But, someone explained the hype to me. Okay, but first of all, sometimes they do have a point. Some of this stuff is kind of fucking out there. So, but that's beside the point. But if you don't understand how hype works by now, no one's gonna sit you down and explain it to you. Let me ask you this: what shoes are you wearing right now? Do they have a Shaq logo on them, or do they have a Jordan logo on them? If they have a Shaq logo, then you probably do need hype explained to you. If they have a Jordan logo, you already understand, hype and limited availability, all that kind of stuff. So no one's going to sit you down and explain this stuff to you. You can read the Business Insider article that explains the hype triangle if you need. So if someone is asking to explain the hype to them, don't answer them. You don't need to satisfy that kind of stuff, because most likely it's a pointless argument anyways. They're not going to care anyways. So, but you can tell them that they are the sneaker guy of the week. This is a new segment called Forecast, where I talk about a shoe coming up, kind of give an idea of where I think the price will settle at. I have two this week. The first one I want to talk about is the Salehe Bembury New Balance 2002R. This is the one that looks like the Grand Canyon, or if they killed Fozzie Bear and made a shoe out of him. This one's been teased for a while. Salehe has been pretty well known. Actually, I don't know if he's well known, but he's known in the industry. He's currently the VP of footwear at Versace. I think he did like that Chain Reaction shoe, and before that he was at Cole Haan and also at Yeezy as well. So I don't know if people know that he did a lot of those military boots. And like I said, this shoe's been teased for a while, like almost half of the year basically. So it's possible that it was supposed to come out earlier and it's just been delayed because of COVID. I think it's a fire shoe. I could totally see this shoe being in the top 10 sneaker of the year list. There's been a lot of fire New Balances already this year, so I could see it being nudged out and just being out of the top 10. But it's not a 992, so if it was a 992, it would get grouped in with all the other ones. It is I think the first one of this 2002 R model. So right now on StockX, it's currently at around 700 to 800. For some sizes, some of the bigger sizes are at 1,000 plus. There's been a few sales of like 500, and above. So I haven't really heard that much about in-store, how much stock they get. But seeing that it's a New Balance, that it's a collab, I'm going by what we've talked about in previous episodes, that maybe there's max 1,000, 2,000 pairs ideally. But, like we saw with Packers and stuff like that, it could be way lower. So my forecast for this shoe is that it eventually settles at 650, 700 US or so. It could dip to 500 or so, especially if people are like, what am I going to do with this? I can't wear an orange shoe. But like the Pyer Moss shoe, there's going to be people who want to wear this, who are in that, if type trendsetter group. And so I could totally see it bouncing back up, especially if it hits those top 10 sneakers of the year's list. Next up, I want to talk about the Off-White 5. I think it's called sale, but it really could be called piss yellow because that's what it looks like. I think the black one is definitely more wearable. And the black one really did establish the market already. We saw earlier in the year where, it released high. A ton of them released in in Chicago in February. And after that, it dipped a bit. But then it went right back to where it was at $900 or $1,000 like it is at now. The difference here is the white ones are full family, so there's probably way more pairs. And usually the formula for any of this kind of hype stuff is the second time around you make more. So the people who cried the first time can have a better chance the second time. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's still probably going to be the toughest one. One of the toughest ones this year to get. So my forecast is that this one eventually also settles at around 700 or so. And it's going to be the usual enter your raffles, and most of the stock will probably be on sneakers again like it was last time. But I could see, boutiques getting, a few hundred pairs. So we'll check back in future episodes at how my forecast did. I said this is what the price will settle at. Sometimes the real price settles at like a month or two later, but we can check back in like a week or two after the release. I could be wrong. I don't do this. I'm not a sneaker investor type who does this professionally. So this is just my thought process is kind of laid out here at what I think, and usually have a good sneaker sense. And whatever I say here is not resell advice. Don't go investing or anything like that by what I say. Go by what you say. You are in control of your purchases, not me. So, word of warning. There's this Kith BMW collab this week as well. And, my question is, who's buying this? Are BMW owners buying this? If you drive a Honda, are you buying this? Is a Tesla buyer buying this? They're usually buying shorts, not BMW robes and stuff. Overall, car branded clothing never really crosses over that well. Puma, Lamborghini, all that stuff was a little too out there. And this Kith collab, the clothing at least is nice because almost all Kith clothing is pretty well executed. And I'm sure it'll sell out. Usually there's only like 100 or so per item. I assume they'll do a little bit less than say they would for this than they would Disney or something like that, or Looney Tunes stuff that they do. But why do we have this collab? For Ronnie, we all know the Ronnie playbook by now. It's the nostalgia. I didn't read the full thing or his 80s stories, but obviously there's probably something about someone in his family had one, or he always wanted one, or the drug dealer on the block drove one, something like that. If BMW approaches Ronnie about this collab, obviously Ronnie's not going to say no. Especially if they say, hey, yeah, we will brand you this, new car and all that kind of stuff, or redo your old one. But for BMW, their goal here is to, attract younger buyers. A lot of the older buyers, they've cashed out. They bought into Teslas and stuff like that. So I'm sure BMW, their big thing here is let's try to get in on younger buyers by getting in, a partnership with Kith. But like I said, my question is, why does this collab exist? Does it need to exist? Ronnie gets to, tell his story, his nostalgia. BMW tries to get new buyers. What do you get? You get a little dinky toy car. Adidas released a bunch of their 1.0 classics in the last couple weeks. There's been the burgundy one, the wool gray one, triple black, and the olive one as well. These are all pretty rare, and when they first dropped, and might have been EU exclusive for some of them, like olive versus burgundy or something like that. But now they're pretty easily available. I think for the most part for now, they've been only on Adidas, but usually they've been sitting the whole day. And the prices are dead on StockX right now, and that's because there's 50% off employee codes that people have. So they'll get a shoe for like $90 when retail's $180, and they'll sell it on StockX for $150 and make, whatever, they're $25. My issue with this is they didn't really treat it like a special release, which is you know, which is normally you'd say that's odd for a company, but for Adidas, it's not really odd. On the other hand, if you've always had one of these pairs, you were able to easily get them. That's great. They could have done the same thing, had the same amount of pairs, made an easy campaign about it. Look, they're back. Even given it to a store, released it all at the same time, build some hype around it again for something that people will want. But I've seen people who got these and said, this is great. I've always wanted these. I don't need another Ultraboost ever again. Especially for 1.0s. Like, what else is there? What's left? The Hype Beast one, the Soul Box, the SNS Tea Time. Are those all coming back? So in a way, they almost killed Ultraboost 1.0 by just kind of casually releasing them and having them kind of, having codes work on them, and now they're under retail on StockX. So, Adidas didn't really protect the model like they should have. In many ways, it feels like this is the end for 1.0, at least for a while, at least for 2-3 years when they bring it back again, and, probably just flop it again. All right, on to the clown prince himself, Warren Lotas. If you missed it, he got sued by Nike, and Nike is going after him pretty hard. They, in their suit, that they said they want basically everything. They want shoes, they want a business shut down, they want like triple the damages. My full Warren Lotas take is on episode 3 of this podcast, and that was before the lawsuit, obviously. And even then, I basically kind of forecasted a little bit of what happened. In that episode, I do talk about how he's making big numbers, and I thought maybe Nike wouldn't sue because Nike hasn't traditionally sued anyone that much, but they pissed Nike off, and they definitely have grounds to sue here. And but in episode 3, I called Nike the warship, and usually they're not worried about a guy in a raft, but guess what? I guess they turned the warship around, and when it's turned around and pointing at your way, you better watch out. The two reasons I think he got sued here are, obviously the swoosh is the main thing, that it's still very much swoosh like. He's causing confusion in the marketplace. You saw in the filings itself that they apparently have the dunk shape as protected as well. And the other reason is, the volume of sales. He did 25,000 orders, which is $7.5 million. That's not exactly a small business. And just because Nike went after Warren Lotas here, I still don't think Nike's going to go after these small AJ1 knockoffs that we're seeing all over the place. Usually those are, super small batches made by, some guy with an Instagram account, or, just like me, with a guy who makes socks from his Twitter account. So if you made a Dick and Balls custom AJ1, I'm pretty sure Nike's not coming after you. But Warren Lotas's response was basically that he is gonna ship both the Susie and the Pigeon, and he said that if his goal was that you're wearing a trophy for small business, not something that causes controversy, and that his vision has been confused. If you did buy these and you want a refund, you can get a refund. People just basically said they replied and they got a refund pretty quickly. I obviously sent a couple of joke tweets about this whole thing because it's so easy to do. The one I made was I said, I had the Pigeon shoe with a knife instead of the swoosh, and it was obviously a joke, but you see how much that the swoosh matters to that shoe. You like this shoe because you like Nike and you like that swoosh. I've seen these galleries before, probably on Nice Kicks or something, where they've put like a swoosh on Steph Curry Under Armour shoes, and some of them look like way better with the swoosh than they do with the UA logo. Also, someone did very fairly ask me, how is this what Warren Lotas is doing compared to what I'm doing with my sock jig socks with the the Calabasas font. The main thing is I'm not trying to sell $7.5 million worth of socks here, and mine is, I guess, considered parody because it is supposed to be an inside joke about the sock jig itself, selling a sock that says sock jig on it. But I'm not tied to this thing. I could stop the brand anytime I want. It's all just a fun project for me. I could change the font and, maybe reduce the amount I make and see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, I could shut it down. No big deal to me. Can Warren Lotas say the same thing? Probably not. But like I said on my Twitter, I think that artists and brands should be allowed to riff off big brands like Nike or Adidas or, Lululemon or whoever. Um, they're big and ubiquitous for a reason, and so they're kind of fair game for some of the stuff within proper boundaries. You see small brands do this all the time. You see skate shops do this all the time, and they do it well. And no one gets upset at those because it's a small batch kind of thing, and it's kind of win-win for everyone. The other question I got asked is, what is resale price going to be? The prices of these things are going to go up. It's definitely possible. I don't really think so. Warren Lotas doesn't really have like a cult following, like a canceled Supreme shoe or same a canceled SB shoe, a real SB shoe. I think it'll probably stay the same. They haven't really seemed to have adjusted that much for the existing ones that are out there. They didn't really shoot up like you see on other stuff when something gets pulled. So if you're looking for a payday, I don't know. If he says he is going to ship these, and there's going to be 25,000 or so. Let's say 5,000 got canceled. There's going to be 20,000 of them on the market. So there's going to be plenty of sellers. One other note I had here was, the number of 25,000 getting out was actually leaked through the Shopify, how he has his Shopify site set up. You could see the stock numbers like dwindling down using a Chrome extension if you just happen to be on the page. Some monitors kind of do the same kind of thing and live update as the stock numbers change. So that's where that number comes from. Or even if you had that disabled, you would have been able to figure it out anyways from the order numbers. Someone who ordered in the first minute probably had, say, order number 10,000, and the guy right when he cut it off at 15 minutes later could have had order number 35,000. Same, you could still get to the same number that way. What I do find kind of ironic is that if he didn't mind bots as much, he might not even be sued by Nike. This whole pre-order business kind of happened because he wanted to make it fair and he wanted to kill bots. And so he made it an unlimited kind of pre-order with the very first Jason shoe. If he had made just 1,000 pairs, I think he did make 1,000 pairs, or if he just made 500 pairs and each time only made 500 pairs, and even if he had bot protection or so and they just kind of went, I think Nike doesn't go after him then. So it's kind of ironic that he might have killed his whole business because he wanted fairness. But, was it fairness that caused all this, or was it his own greed? I'll go with greed. All right, so first up, my first ever guest is my buddy, It's the Mob, who you may have blocked on Twitter, which I like to point out every time. How's it going?
Everything's going good. How about you?
All right, I consider everything's great. I consider you, a goat protege, not a protege, a goat expert. I learn a lot, a savant. I learn a lot about you about goat and goat storage. I'm not asking you to burn any loops or talk about shoes that you sell and things like that, or which ones. I want to talk about basically the goat storage instant ship changes and how they added 6.5%, and how that's affected a bulk seller like yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how's it been? Has it slowed down a bit for you?
Yeah. So they added the feature, I want to say maybe 2 weeks now. And prior to that, I was probably selling in a week, give or take 10, 20 pairs. And since they added the feature, it's been like maybe 3 a week. So it slowed down a lot.
Wow. 10, like 20, 30, did you say?
Like 10 to 20.
Yeah.
In a week. it was a. I mean, they were on the weekends. It would just go crazy. I guess people like to spend a lot on the weekends, but just on the weekends it would be almost 10. So if the weekdays were anything well, then it could hit 20 in a week, and that's with like almost 300, 400 pairs listed in the storage. So I mean, that's a good turnover rate for that many pairs.
Right. And just to kind of go over what they've done, they added a 6.5% fee to all instant ship orders, which they call like a priority processing fee. So if a normal shoe that people have listed on Goat is say $500, and the instant ship version is usually a bit higher than that, like it's almost like a consignment price at say 700. Now, if that buyer wants that instant ship version, they actually get charged 6.5% more. So they would actually get charged like 745 or so. And that it's like a premium price on top of a premium price, which doesn't seem like a great idea. So I'm not sure why they did it. And the key point is the seller doesn't get any of that. They keep all that.
They, yeah, they're what I'm assuming what they're doing is one, preparing for a later functionality with Flight Club where people can drop off at flight or ship to flight or ship to Goat maybe and have it in storage. So I'm assuming that they're preparing for that and they want to have something to back the cost for that. But another thing that they're doing is they're just cutting costs for having stuff stored in general, given with the increase in people using it. I'm assuming they didn't think it would get so out of hand. Plus, the pandemic has obviously increased cost for any type of work, including warehouses. But
Yeah.
this 6.5%, I'm assuming they're in testing now, so they're testing, every company has the right to test stuff, but it's a bad test given what their outcome or desired outcome was because it does a lot of things to the buyer, it does a lot of things to the seller, and at the end that affects Goat's selling volume, and I wonder if they're tracking it that way.
Yeah. Goat is run by like business people. They're not exactly like sneakerhead dudes, and there's no face of the company like there was with Luber at StockX. So any business that runs it properly, like a startup, I'm assuming that they've crunched these numbers and they came to this conclusion that they make money overall at that with that 6.5%, even if there's fewer pairs, but maybe they didn't forecast sales going down 30-40%. um, so what do you think the sellers are doing? Are they undercutting now because sales have slowed down? They need their monthly sales. They need a trickle of something coming in. Are they now the shoe that they originally had at $700? Are they dropping the price down to 650, or um, are they dropping it down to even like closer to what the normal ask price of say like the example I used of $500?
Well, here's the way I see it. So, let's say you are a reseller, but you have a lot of capital and you sell a lot on Goat. So, you don't want to cash out the money because you see a shoe that you see potential in. So, you buy a lot of pairs, or you buy a few, or you just buy a pair that you like but aren't sure about, you keep it in the storage. So, now when you're going to sell the shoe, as a buyer, if you see a shoe that goes for 300 and then you see that there's an instant offer, like an instant purchase option, and it's 350, you're like, well, that's a $50 difference. To get it in 2 days, I'll do that. That's nothing. But if you're the seller, if you have it listed at 350 now with the 6.5, you add that, then your price goes up to like maybe 380 something. So now the buyer is looking at the 300 price and the 380 price, and for a $300 shoe, 80 is a lot. And then you add the tax and the ship. So as a buyer, you're probably less willing to buy that. And as a seller, if you're not really into what's going on and you don't even know that the 6.5% is there, you have your price at 350, but you look at the buyer side of the app and you see that your 350 is not the lowest price. So maybe you're confused and you don't know what's going on. So maybe you lower it again just to see what's going on, or you do know what's going on So you lower your price just to make it closer to the 300 to incentivize the buyer to buy. So now you have all these people who are on the seller side who can't really tell if they're the lowest price or not, or what would the lowest price have to be to match what the buyer sees. So that creates an instability.
The difference between StockX and Goat here, for people who don't know, is StockX, you can see how many asks are listed, whereas Goat, you really don't know how many people are there. Usually the way to do that is you slightly increase your price and see if you're still the lowest ask. Um,
Yeah, so if on Goat you're not the lowest price, you just move your price and see if on the buyer side it checks out. Because like sometimes if you have your pair in storage specifically, let's say your pair is at a storage that isn't really accessible for the instant ship, it won't be on the instant ship price. Well, that's what I'm
right.
assuming because it happens and then it corrects itself. But in general, you can't see how many pairs are listed at what price, who has what price. And on the buyer side, the 6.5% is added. It's not like it tells you the price and then it adds the 6.5. So I feel like if they made it separate so that when they go to checkout, it added that, and then they saw that this percentage is added to ensure next day delivery, I think the buyer would be more willing because they don't see that as a price of the shoe, they see that as a price of the service.
Right.
But when they add it automatically into the price, they don't know. They just think that's the price of the shoe that someone is charging. And it's just it's mentally different for the buyer.
Yeah. No, when I click on an instant ship right now, like I just did, this little pop-up shows up and it explains priority processing, and then you kind of click the button and continue. But the case with all these kind of things is who reads that.
Yeah, like you just go to the shoe, you look at new and you see the two prices and you're just like, wow, that's a big difference.
Right. So usually sales pick up after Halloween. Are and then Christmas season is coming up, and Christmas season is pretty key with instant ship because people leave stuff last minute. I assume you're holding for Christmas season and hoping stuff picks up after October 31st.
So during the pandemic, at the strong part of it, a lot of shipments were delayed. So I think that really incentivized people to buy with instant ship because for whatever reason, even if they didn't need it right away, people like to have their stuff right away. So now that things have gotten back to normal, the need for instant ship isn't that necessary. And then with the price increase, it makes it even double like unsatisfactory or unappealing. But during the holiday season, it always gets cranked up. It always gets tight with shipping. And potentially coronavirus might stifle some movement even more. So with the holiday season, I am looking forward to the goat storage to pick up a little bit. Maybe by then they even reverse the 6.5 option, or I don't know what they're going to do with it. But for now, it's really slow. And holiday season, more people are going to be buying. So yeah, I am hopeful that that will help me move some stuff for sure.
It seems like they just like business wise they won't reverse it so soon. Like usually businesses don't like admitting failure that way. Even if they did like some promo around it, where one day the 6.5% is off, like kind of StockX does sometimes. I could see that, but you never know. Like I said, I think they must be crunching the numbers and they must have seen the sales. I've seen on Twitter a power seller saying they're down 30-40%, and that's got to show up in reports somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
well, on a business side, I'm assuming that the people running the business numbers are not sneaker resellers, so they don't know the ins and outs. They just look at numbers, they look at cost, they look at profit. But I think one thing that they're overlooking with all of this, so let's say that they're putting the 6.5% to cover cost of storage. What they're not realizing is that when somebody buys a pair for storage to then sell later when the price goes up, or just to sell at a higher price because of the instant ship option, they're getting two commissions with only one shipping. So
right.
a person buys it for their storage, they get that commission, and then it stays in their storage. and then they sell it again, and then Goat gets that commission, and they only had to do shipping once back and forth. So in the way I view it, that should alone be considered covering the cost of storage. But I guess they don't see that way, or whatever other reason they want to pass on more of the cost to the sellers or buyers,
Yeah, they want six and a
and
half
they
percent
think they're
more.
passing the cost. Yeah, they think they're passing the cost onto the buyer, but they're actually passing it off to the seller, because a lot of the sellers are lowering their prices, because if a shoe is 300 lowest price and you're in storage and you just want to sell your shoe right now, just for you to match the 300 of the regular price, you'd have to go 6.5 under that. So just to get the same payout as someone who's going to take 2 weeks to get their pair, you're going to make less money
Right.
because of that, if you want to match the price and sell it right away.
I saw a few people also like, they didn't give that much notice for this. They only really a few weeks, like 3, 4 weeks. And so if you're a power seller, I know you have like say hundreds of them, and I saw on Twitter people saying that they've got like thousands of them in there. So and even that logistically, if you want to move all your pairs out, it seems like that's going to be a pain too, and they're probably unlikely to want to help you move all those pairs out. That is something I hope they address and kind of fix going forward. But um, I assume everyone's gonna hold tight. Christmas is around the corner, and after Christmas, kind of reevaluate.
Yeah, for now, I mean, Christmas is a month and a half away, so no rush on that. But after that, depending on how it goes, I mean, most shoes you could probably move somewhere else and take the shipping hit. It's just a matter of how many shoes you're going to have to take out, how many shipments that's going to be, having to deal with the shipment. Maybe some get lost. Shipping hundreds of pairs back to yourself one by one individually and not bulk is a hassle in and of itself.
Yeah,
You might not have the space for it. Then you have to move it to wherever else you're going to move them or sell them. So that is a
especially
hassle.
especially goat if they've moved them around. If like say I know during the quarantine, their Culver City one was closed and they were moving stuff up to Fontana or at least operating out of Fontana. So it's possible that they move pairs around. And even with Flight Club, they could be dropping off stuff in store at Flight Club. I know that's their eventual goal is to have everything in line with Flight Club and Goat. And so, say something super rare comes in and there's already one in that size at Flight Club LA, so they want it, and their New York one, so they could ship it out there. But then if the buyer says, I mean, the seller who consigned it says, I want it back, plus my 20 Air Forces, I doubt they can do that all in one shipment.
Yeah, it's going to be all your stuff is scattered around the world. I mean, some stuff in storage is in Hong Kong, some stuff is in Europe. Like they have warehouses everywhere,
Right.
and they're not always operated by the same supply chain. Like they're different people, different chains of command, different regions. So you couldn't even possibly get all your stuff in an organized way with them just because of that. And yeah, it just makes it really complicated. But for now, since it's such a new process, I'm not really rushing it. I'm just gonna wait it out, give it a try, see what happens. But for the moment, I've stopped buying for storage.
Right.
So I was buying maybe like 30, 40 pairs a week, just like off what was selling. I would use the same credits to buy more. But ever since the change, I've stopped buying there. So eventually we'll see how it moves going into next year. But you got to give them a chance to change stuff around. But for now, it's not looking too hot.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you're selling, stop undercutting. That's a universal truth, anyways. Okay, that's all I had. Anything else that you wanted to add?
Well, just to add on to the undercutting part, you have to look at what your price is. You have to look at what the 6.5 adds up to, and just hold strong. I mean, holidays are around. People are gonna buy it up. People need that Yeezy right away. People need that Jordan right away. People like to take pictures. People like to wear stuff. Just hold tight. I see a lot of people. I see a lot of pairs going down. in prices. I see a lot of people on Twitter talking about how their stuff isn't moving. So it's not just a combination of the price increase, it's also people reducing their prices. So yeah, just hold strong.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being the first guest on the Sock Jake Sneaker Podcast.
Hey man, thank you. I'm happy to break the ice with the guests.
Like I said, I knew you would have been offended if I invited anybody else on.
I mean, hey, I've been doing the goat storage. I think I've been doing the goat storage since they first implemented it. I don't even remember when, but they had a few Yeezys for retail, Yeezys for under retail days when they first started it, I think, and those were really good,
Yeah.
especially the first cream drop.
All right. Thanks a lot. That's It's the Mob on Twitter is where you can follow him for all his cyberbullying. And if you have him blocked, you can unblock him and tell him I told you to unblock him. So, and maybe you deserve to be cyberbullied. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe you do.
All right. Thanks a lot.
No problem, man. Have a good one.
All right, that's episode 5. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, or like or subscribe on YouTube if that's how you listen. Tell your friends, tell your Discord, tell your group chat. Get the word out there. I feel like I'm doing something in this realm that no one else really has or has the chops to do. So I'd appreciate if you send it along to someone who might be interested. See you next time.